When you purchase a new home or a condo, you're all excited. You go to the closing table, you start moving things in, not far down the road, but within a few days or a week or two or something like that, you notice that there's something wrong with the property that wasn't disclosed by the seller. What does that mean? What options do you have as a buyer or the new owner at that point? What are the ethical issues? What are the legal issues? Good morning. My name is Mike Renick. I am the senior broker, the team lead with Team Renick Real Estate Services. We're part of that great Keller Williams on the Water family, serving the entire west coast of Florida. Welcome to the November 21st edition of Title Time with Mike and Mike. The other half of the Mike and Mike is Mr. Hankin. He is an attorney with the law firm of Hankin and Hankin. He practices primarily in the areas of residential and commercial real estate. He is an approved agent for the Chicago Title Insurance Company. I really have to get the bifocals fixed. I apologize. The Attorney's Title Insurance Fund and the Old Republic Title Insurance Company. And he has been designated as a board certified real estate attorney. That's the highest level of recognition by the Florida Bar. But all around, and more importantly, and above all of that, he's just an outstanding good guy. So we'll bring Mike on here. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Dr. Renick. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Let me be the first to wish you and all of our followers a happy Thanksgiving.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Same to you and to everybody listening. And we really are grateful for all the blessings and the everything we've gotten this last year. So thank you to our clients, our friends, our viewers. We sincerely appreciate it.
I hope everyone gets some downtime to enjoy their family, their friends, neighbors, all the above. Take a few minutes away from work to enjoy what you have, to think back. We're blessed, Mike, and you've shared this many times with the type of clients that both your company and our company has been blessed with getting, and just the best of the best, and we're really appreciative of that, and I thank everyone for that.
Absolutely. So today is a discussion about some things that maybe we're not so thankful for. And those are the little surprises that we might find after we buy a house or a condo and we realize, hey, there's this huge issue, and why didn't somebody tell me about this? And so when you encounter that situation and you're buying a home, there's really three different people who are obligated to tell you about the condition of the property. There's the seller, any brokers you hire, and of course your real estate broker as well. So a seller, to begin with the first, is obligated to disclose those things to you which they actually are aware of, which are not readily observable, and which materially affect the value of the property. Those are three very independent and very important factors. And many of them are difficult. The first one, that the seller actually knew of the issue, is the one that typically we encounter the most, and that creates the most problems. To prove that a seller actually had knowledge of a not readily observable defect is tough. If you can't see it very easily, how did the seller know about it? And more importantly, and more to the point, how do you as the buyer prove the seller had actual knowledge? In those cases, we've really only been able to prove it either by history of repairs, sometimes from neighbors' testimony, but typically a buyer in those situations without any independent ability to prove that there was a problem that wasn't disclosed is out of luck. If they are lucky enough to be able to have some evidence that the seller was actually aware of the issue and that was not readily observable, it still then has to go and materially affect the value of the property. So for instance, let's say you buy a $2 million beach house, which has a beautiful piece of land right on the beach and a really small house. And the seller didn't disclose to you that the plumbing is all bad. Well, the plumbing isn't a large portion of that purchase. And so you might argue as the seller, that doesn't materially affect the value of the property. And again, you might not have any recourse against the seller. Which is why, with such little recourse, practical resource against sellers, with the difficulty in proving both their knowledge and that the defect had a material impact on the value of the property, people rely upon inspectors, our second source of liability. Of course, during a home purchase, often buyers are obtain home inspections, and certainly we encourage them to obtain home inspections. And if the inspector misses something that they say they inspected, there may be recourse against the inspector as well. A couple of things to note here. Those inspectors often have very lengthy agreements where they attempt to limit their liability to the amount of the fee that's paid to them, or limit the scope of their inspections to items that they could actually view. Or often they'll notice that there's a problem with something and recommend further testing, in which if you fail to do, you take the liability for that item. And so if your inspector missed something, you might have a second source of liability, a second source of collection to make yourself whole. And the third is where some of the interesting discussion comes into, is as a broker. And a broker under Florida law, either a transaction agent or a single agent, has a duty to disclose, same as the seller, all things which are not readily observable, which materially affect the value of the property, and of course, which they actually know. So we get into an interesting situation with brokers. You have the same challenges of proving that they were actually aware of the issue. But if you can prove that, and a broker for the seller, let's say, helped the seller hide a defect, they would also be liable for not disclosing that to you. But as brokers, transaction agents have certain duties, single agents have additional duties. And some of those additional duties that single real estate agents have are loyalty and confidentiality, which, as you can see, somewhat conflict with the duty to disclose all known defects which materially affect the value to the buyer. So if, for instance, you as a single agent, Mike, are told by the seller, hey, we know our plumbing's bad, it's only got about another month left, but I don't think it materially affects the value. You're my single agent. Don't tell the buyer. I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you do?
That's a good question. I'm going to answer from an ethical point of view. And I'm going to let the seller know. I'm going to sit down face to face and say, our job is full transparency. And if we know that something is wrong, it is our job to share with the buyer. I actually had that in the past, and the seller relented and he agreed. At that point, and this was a couple of years ago, I was prepared to walk away from the deal if they don't want to do that. See, I don't want to just take a listing. I want it to be a clean listing that I can sell and I can sleep well at night. So if this was up front and we're in negotiations for me to take the listing, he shared that with me and he wouldn't budge. I'd let him know that I respect your position, but I can't list the property.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a minute, and I'm going to pretend to be your seller and say, but Mike, I don't understand, it doesn't materially affect the value of the property. It's just the plumbing. This is a huge beachfront property. I don't think I have to disclose it, and I don't think you have to disclose it.
So the question I would ask, am I learning this after we sign the listing agreement or before? Because if it's before, I'm walking away. I'm just, because to me, when we talk about the plumbing is bad, you can't use that little tiny house on that big oceanfront lot without plumbing. So if it's after the listing, I guess I would have to turn. It's why I like being a broker associate. That means there's a broker higher up in the chain, and I don't turn for advice very often, but that would be one that I think I would have to. I would not be comfortable, I'll be honest, listing that property.
And it's a difficult situation. In my experience, most sellers do the right thing when confronted with it. But it's important for the agent to know that duty to disclose and to have that conversation and disclose it when it comes up. Defects in homes are very complicated. It's difficult to always know if a seller's liable, broker's liable, inspector's liable. Really, it's kind of an interesting issue to look at and see what really you're obligated to disclose. There's a lot of judgment calls there, and my father always told me, when in doubt, don't. So I think your approach aligns with that, and is the conservative route, and let you put your head on the pillow at night and not have to worry about it.
See, there's a couple of ways to look at it. Maybe the value of the plumbing versus the entire parcel is small. So let's say that. But when you talk about material value, let's look at using the house. And I'm trying to remember a term from 100 years ago when I got my economics degree. We called it utils or something like that, but value. And so when you look at the plumbing as a percent of enjoying that house, that's pretty doggone high in my mind. And that's something you have to disclose.
So, devil's advocate again. I would
love it.
argue that the repair cost for the plumbing would be relatively nominal compared to the overall value of the property. And because of that, it would not be materially affect the value of the property. But it's a judgment call, and it could go either way. A jury could find that either way. It's really a fact issue that there's leeway for. But it's interesting, and these are kind of the nuances that we run into on a day-to-day day-to-day basis. Things are not black and white. There's lots and lots of shades of gray.
See, I'm an old man, and I still believe in the handshake means everything. Now, I'm not naive enough to practice business under those rules because I know it doesn't. But when I give my word, when I say something about a property, when I shake my hand, that is golden. And I will always, always honor that. So knowing something about a home, if you're talking about, I'm trying to think of what might be small. One of the little tiny drawers doesn't roll out smoothly, back and forth. The glide kind of a process. Those to me are non-material, things like that. I like your questions. I'm sure the realtors would give you a multitude of answers with that.
And I'm not sure there's a right answer. It's something that I wasn't able to find has been a case where it's been tested, and it's just a open ethical / moral issue that brokers and buyers should be aware of. So it's just an important thing to keep to mind, and one of those things that we try to increase the professionalism with this additional knowledge in our industry. So the more people know, generally the more competent they are, the better job they do, the less frustrated and concerned they are in transactions. So stay tuned. There'll be more installments, and we'll keep going.
I'll share one last point. To me, ethics is defined as doing the right thing even when no one is looking. So the answer to your question for me personally is very easy. We don't take the listing or we disclose. But I see both sides of this. I'm very happy to be on this side because I can sleep well at night.
It's the right way to be. And I agree. There's so many transactions and so many things going on that if you start doing a wrong thing in one, by the end of your career, you've done it so many times that it's going to come back to bite you. So don't do it wrong once, and you never have to worry about it.
I absolutely agree. Anything else to share, Mike?
No, that's it for this week. And we'll keep coming up with new topics and keep coming.
I like this. Have a great Thanksgiving again. I appreciate you investing your time in our show. And I thank you, and we'll see you again next Wednesday morning.
Sounds great, Mike. Thanks, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Take care.
You too.